Hey, Gerald here. In this video I want to talk a little bit about the conveyors in my Match 3 project. Now I'm sure you know what a conveyor belt is and its purpose in most games. So what makes a conveyor belt in my editor? Well, it is a group of conveyor pieces linked together via nodes that will form a loop. Later these conveyor belts can be used in different types of Match 3 game engines that I will also be creating. Once in the game, any objects that are on a conveyor belt, when it moves, will travel along the belt in the direction of the belt towards the next numbered node. For example, I'll show you a quick video here. This video is from my game Tisnart Shapes. You can see how the blocks are following the arrows after each move. So that's the general idea. I'll show you another quick video here from the same game. So after each move, all the blocks follow along the arrows. Alright, that's enough of that. So what I'm about to show you in this editor is a little bit more advanced than how I did my conveyor belts in that game. And the possible types of conveyors that you'll be able to make should be pretty big. Okay, so on with it. First, a brief explanation of the creation process for each conveyor belt. It'll look something like this. I got these three objects here that I created, and these will be used to actually create each conveyor belt. And this piece here is the actual conveyor piece that will be created. These three objects, this object I called it the trail object. Then I have the follower object and the leader object. Now the trail object will determine where you just were in the conveyor belt process. The leader object will determine where you are going, and the follower piece will show you where you are now in the conveyor belt process. And all the new conveyor pieces will be created at that point where the follower is. I know that might sound weird or confusing, but hopefully you'll get the gist of it once I show you how it's done. Alright, I already got my game up and loaded here, so it's running, and I want to go into the manipulators group here, and under group 1 in the conveyors tab right here, you'll see that on the left hand side here I have 10 conveyor belt choices. That's probably going to be way more than anyone will ever use, but I like having lots of options. So they are all different colors. The only reason I made them different colors is so that, in case you have many conveyor belts on the screen while editing, you can see, you'll be able to determine between them all, but more on that later. So let's just jump in and I'll show you how to create a conveyor belt. I'm just going to hide all these game pieces for now. So to start a new conveyor belt, we're going to click on one of the conveyor belt choices. Doesn't matter which one you choose. And then hover over the cells on the board here to decide where you want to start your first conveyor belt. Left click on the choice that you want, where you want to start it. And once you do that, you'll see the trail piece will show up here. And if you move the mouse around the trail piece, the leader piece shows up, and this will determine in which direction you want the conveyor belt to start. So once you click on the leader, your first piece is created right here, and the follower will show up. Once the follower shows up, you do the same thing. You just rotate around the follower to determine where you want to continue on with the conveyor belt. Once you know that, you just start clicking, and you can click and drag to create all of the new pieces, like so. You can also, like if you happen to make a mistake while you're doing this and you didn't want to go that way, simply right click on any conveyor piece that's already made to delete it, and go all the way back to the beginning if you want, and then you can start over. Let's try a different color this time. Okay, so let's say you're dragging real quick, but you want to go diagonally, like so. If you start clicking too fast, it's kind of hard to do it diagonally. So in that case, just simply click on one at a time to put the pieces where you want them exactly, like so. And I'm just going to go back here for a sec. Alright, let's continue on here. One quick thing to note here, you'll notice that as you're creating pieces, you see these numbers that get created on top of each conveyor piece. This number obviously represents the node number for each piece. This node number will be used later in the game, and that will tell any objects on the conveyor belt which direction and what conveyor piece to travel to next. Now if you decide, let me back up here. Okay, so to complete a conveyor belt, all you have to do is, let's go back here, hover the mouse over the very first piece that you created, so the number 1 conveyor piece, and if you're happy with that, then you just click on it and that'll complete the loop. If you're not happy with it and you want to go a different direction, you want to keep going, just switch the direction. But I'm quite happy with that, so just click on there and it completes the conveyor belt loop. Okay, so now that this conveyor belt is complete, the choice over here on the left, you'll notice is disabled, so you won't be able to use that again to create another conveyor belt. Just click on a new conveyor belt choice, and I'm going to make another belt, but this time I'm going to go the opposite direction. Close the loop. Boom, got another conveyor belt done already. Now let's say for whatever reason you want to change the direction of one of the conveyor belts that you've already created on the board. To do this, you'll right click on the conveyor belt choice and hover over reverse belt, and that will, as you click it, change the direction of the belt. And you notice that the node numbers on the belt also update every time you do that. And if you want to reverse the direction of all the conveyor belts on the board at the same time, then go up to the top menu here and click on reverse all conveyor belts. There, just as simple as that. Alright, what happens if you want to remove one of the conveyor belts that you created? Well, same thing, come back down to the conveyor belt choice, click on remove belt, and that'll remove that particular belt. Let's say you want to remove all the belts at the same time, and go up to the top menu and you click on remove all conveyor belts. Oops. Boom, and they're all gone. Now I included another option that I call it forced C mode. Why? I don't know. I just couldn't think of what else to call it. And the way that works is, let's say you're creating a conveyor belt and you get to the end here and you're like, oh, I actually want to continue this conveyor belt off the side here and maybe come in down at the corner here somewhere. So as you hover over the follower here, you see the little text come up here and it'll say double click for force mode. So simply left double click on the follower, and then choose the direction that you want to continue the conveyor belt in. So I'm going to keep it the same direction. After you do that, you have to choose where you want on the board to continue the conveyor belt. So I want to continue it somewhere down here in the corner. So once I decide where I want it to continue at, I click on the cell. Up pops the trail piece again, and just kind of like you did when you create the first piece, the leader will show up here around the trail piece, and you just choose how you want to continue on. So I'm going to choose this way and continue on and close my conveyor belt. Alright, this one might be a little silly, but I think you get the general idea. Let's try another one here. So I'm gonna, let's see, let's start here, and I'm gonna go across, and let's see. Okay, I want to head out the bottom here. Double click, and if you choose, you decide you don't want to go this route, you just double click on there and that cancels it. So I'm gonna go it the same way. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna come out this way. Now I want to continue it from up here, just to be silly, and continue on down and close the loop, like so. I think you get the general idea. I know that you'll be able to create some pretty unique conveyor belts this way. Now I have put some what you call, I guess, safety checks in place to prevent a bad belt from being made, but for the most part I assume that there's going to be good logical thinking when creating a conveyor belt. I could have put more additional checks in place, but it would hinder other aspects of the creation process, and I tried to find that perfect balance, especially due to all the different types of match 3 games that I hope this editor will allow a person to create. So I only put checks in place for certain where certain possible mistakes that could cause errors in the code. Basically, wherever logic should dictate how the belt's continuous movement flow, then there's no safety checks in place. Besides, in a worst case scenario, you just remove the belt and start over again. Well, that's pretty much it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video and that it was somewhat informative. Of course, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and I'll try to answer them all. Alright, cheers.